So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode we saw the red team start their invasion into Neo-Persia, and this would officially start the Third War of Arabia. If you guys enjoy this, make sure to subscribe, and yeah, let's just get straight into it. So firstly we see the red team still continue success into Neo-Persia. They are, after all, the 5th strongest country in the world still. However, Neo-Persia is 3rd, and they're not concentrating at the minute. What they kind of want to do is just let the red team have it at first, make it look like they're going to win, and then eventually they're going to smash into it, which that point has now come, as thousands of Neo-Persian troops will now smash into this red team area, pushing them back and even cutting them off this bit here. They'll then officially start an invasion into the red team, and it's very swift. Neo-Persia, despite the fact that the red team has a ranking, is way stronger than them. And the red team is probably stronger with resources, but Neo-Persia does have a pretty big monopoly on uranium, so that's cool. Do they? I don't even know, but okay. We do see the Neo-Persians push back down here as well, and completely take back this major city and just completely crush the red team's forces. The red team is extremely overwhelmed by this Neo-Persian offence, and is quite swiftly pushed back, to the point where they have no occupied land in Neo-Persia. So the Neo-Persians will be able to come up and capture the city now, and push across the border place here. Despite the fact that the red team, started this war, Neo-Persia is still considered in the wrong here, because they're not just like invading this territory and being like, oh hey, yeah, you can just be part of us. They're being really brutal, like stages of how Germany acted during the Second World War. It sounds bad, but not Germany in our timeline, but in this timeline how they acted. It's very similar to that, and that is kind of what this fascism is. I mean, you could even call the Triangle Alliance stuff from World War II, you could say that was sort of like a very early version of this sort of fascism. But this is a much more advanced and brutal version of it. So, yeah, unfortunately for the red team. But the red team was going to do this anyway because they thought that they would have been next if it wasn't for Neo-Persia, because they literally have nowhere else to expand, and oh look, there's a red team here, so we could definitely go to them. Which is probably not true. They probably would have gone for this country maybe, or they might have gone for possibly into the CEU, or maybe taking over the rest of India. Who knows what they would have done, but that's not happening because the Neo-Persians are invading. However, the red team is going to have some luck, as they are going to get one country in this war, and that's going to be Caspian, because of another event that's going to be happening. What's going to happen is Neo-Persia is going to send a massive spearhead into this assigned country and kill the entire government. What they're going to do here is replace a dictatorship with a fascist dictatorship. Not very different, but in the yellow team's eyes, yeah, they really hate this. So what they're finally going to do is have enough of this Neo-Persian imperialism, and they're going to invade into the Cyan country, some of their very old historical land. Remember, the Caspian used to own the entirety of the Caspian Sea, and they slowly kind of started to take it back at this point. But that doesn't matter, because they're now just coming up the coast, and they're going to hit this area here, and send a spearhead out to try and capture this major city, which they will successfully do. And from there they will start their own offensive into Neo-Persia, now crushing the forces that were very unexpected of a Caspian invasion. I guess you could call these guys like Iran as well, but I don't really want to call them Iran because it's completely different, historical wise. I mean, you wouldn't even call Persia because it's different historical wise if you use that logic, but at the same time, just listen, right? What? They will capture this city though, and Neo-Persia is getting a pretty strong sort of coalition formed against them. And this new Caspian, New Caspian front line will let the red team push back more against Neo-Persia. I don't know why I'm so awful at speaking. I need to take some speech therapy classes because I keep saying it's just I can't speak properly on a camera. I don't know what's wrong with me. We do see this area fully fall over to Caspian now. However, Neo-Persia is not going to have it. And they will start sending their troops into Caspian occupied territories, pushing back against Caspian around this area. Even push back against the spearhead and recapturing the city. They also push in and re-liberate some of the Cyan team's territory, even taking back this major city. And since that was a pretty short-lived run of Caspian success, as now the Neo-Persians are right back to destroying the OG countries. And before any of you ask, no, this is not the green team, different governments. In fact, I do have an old map. This map here, this is from episode, I don't actually quite remember, but it's before World War II. And as we can see here, we have Neo-Persia and the OG, this is the OG Persian country. So what happened with this one was the one who went fascist, and they invaded this country, and then eventually they would take over all of Old Persia. Then they would invade the red team, and they basically got to the point, as we can see, how they are at this point. So that's kind of the law of Neo-Persia. They are the blue country that is right here. I just decided to change their colour because it looked better like this. But anyway, enough yapping. Because now we have the Neo-Persians actually completely pushing Caspian out of this country. This just goes to show how strong they are and how weak all of their neighbours are. They could have really just taken over all of Asia if they really wanted to. But they kind of held back, considering that would cause a massive coalition of the entire world against them. But then another bad thing happened for Neo-Persia, they can't stop having bad things. Down in this country here, we have a rebellion starting. This is a pro-democratic rebellion. As the country was switched to fascism, the people never liked this new fascist government, and it's going to basically manifest itself just like this and take over a lot of land. And very quickly the old government, or the fascist government, will be completely destroyed by the rebellion forces, and we have the return of old Bangladesh, as the East Indian country is now dead, and Bangladesh, or the OG government, is officially back. As we then have them starting their invasion, on their long-awaited invasion into Neo-Persia, in a very nationalistic move to take back their old territory that they had lost. They will also start an invasion into Burma, and this will go equally as well, as Burma is on the side of Neo-Persia. And Neo-Persia at this point, they have already called in all their allies, so the puppet state, this country here, Burma and Sumatra will all join in on this war, and they'll start to help against Neo-Persia. And they will be good to help, as lots of Sumatran troops being forced, not by obviously they don't want to do this. They are forced to kind of come up here and defend against Bangladesh as they take back the old capital city of Bangladesh and start pushing them back. Also have Neo-Persia capturing the city once again. And on this front line we see even more Neo-Persian success. But on the red front line it's not going to go as good for Neo-Persia, as the Bengali distraction did definitely lead to a bit of victory from the red team. They were kind of there just to distract, so they probably weren't ever meant to win. However, the red team is going to use this to their advantage a lot and push Neo-Persia back like loads. This will allow them to once again start their charged invasion into this country, and it shows that Neo-Persia may not be as invincible as we once thought. And the dictator of Neo-Persia even sees this, and he will start a top secret project that no one in the world will know about. We'll revisit what that is later. Anyway, Burma will have another country attacking them now, and that's actually going to be the Philippines. The Philippines haven't done anything in the series, so they will start an invasion of the Bornean island. And they really have hated the Burman expansion recently, so they are finally going to be taking it out into their hands and invading. However, the one thing they didn't account for was how strong that Burma's air force was. So strong that they'll be able to completely destroy this landing. And yeah, the Burmese Air Force is going to now drop paratroopers all over the islands of this country. Burma is really a go-getter country. That's horrible. Oh my god, I don't want to say any more cringe things. But Burma is the country that just does anything they really want. They don't really care what anyone else thinks. And they can, they're very risky as well. That was the word I was looking for. They have very risky strategies. But seeing this, the Philippines are going to move their capital from this island, because it's definitely not very, good to have a capital on here. So what they're instead going to do is move the capital to the northern point of this island here. Well, not the northern point, but the northernmost island in the Philippines. And there, a lot of the government will be safe. A lot of them was already located here already. They just had the capital here for some reason, the government was weird. But we do have the pretty much the southern island of the Philippines being nearly completely taken over by but not by Burma. I keep getting them mixed up. In fact, the entirety of it is, and now Burma has taken over the entire southern islands of the Philippines. We've now them taking over these islands over here, and yeah, even making a small landing like this. However, Burma, seeing all this success, is going to kind of get ahead of themselves, and this could lead to something in the rest of the war. But we have other stuff to concentrate on with Neo-Persia. And that's the Bengali front line, as unfortunately for anyone who likes Bangladesh, they are going to get completely obliterated, as Neo-Persian troops will invade in now and practically take over this entire part of the country and kill off any government officials left, and the rest will go over to Burma. Just like that, Bangladesh country has been completely wiped off this map, and after this war there will be a peace treaty to fully divide it up. We then have the red team getting pushed back over here as well. Neo-Persia has started minor parts of conscription. Not conscription, but if you're over 18 you're being encouraged to fight. And once again we have this city being captured, and many landings being made around the Persian Gulf area here, near to some of the most important areas of the red team over here in Metopia, which I believe the Persians have captured twice at this point. For some reason the Persians are always the one to capture Metopia. I feel like they're the only ones who have actually captured Metopia. So hey, good job Persian countries, you've done it. However, they have lost every war of Arabia so far, and that's kind of sad. I mean, there was a fourth one, wasn't there? No, this is technically, I mean, I call it the third war of Arabia. This is technically the fourth war of Arabia, because when the Triangle Knights did invade Arabia down here, well, Persia got in. And I guess you could call this the fourth, but it's interchangeable. I'm going to leave it up to you guys what you think this one is, the fourth or the third. Actually, no, I'm just going to say it. This is the fourth. Ignore what I said in the last video, ignore it. You also see the Neo-Persians continue into Caspia, now coming around the Tehran area, which I believe Tehran is like here, although I'm awful. It could be like over here. I'm terrible with locating cities. We do see them come up and grab this, and eventually make a connection up with the Caspian Sea. And the front line in this country is going to start collapsing. However, at the minute it's still going good as they all cross the land bridge up here in Turkmenistan and get over to this area. But then the Neo-Persian troops arrive and they'll start dominating the Caspian troops just like this and pretty much fully push them out of this country. And this weird pocket here will also be captured by the Neo-Persians. Then have the Neo-Persians continuing in this Iranian area from the red team and doing extremely well just like this, pushing around and just dominating the red army. And eventually they'll make several landings in the Persian Gulf, many around this Saudi Arabian area here, even making one in Qatar and capturing this major city. They make a few more around these other places, but they also make one very close to the holy city, and another one here, and eventually there'll just be a few dotted around in Oman, and the red team has lost all of this. The Neo-Persian navy was much more advanced than we thought, because they never really had to use it, but it is more advanced than we thought. So they'll be able to push down the coast and do something like this. We can tell at this point the red team is completely cooked. We then see them come around and wrap in Qatar and basically just try and expand all of their naval front lines out to the point where they can take over all of this land, and eventually the Holy City battle will begin. This battle will go on for over 3 months. However, in the end it will result in a Neo-Persian victory once again. We even see this area be captured, and yeah, the Arabians are utterly cooked at this point. And now the third or fourth battle of Metopia will commence. No, this is the third battle of Metopia. From both sides, or actually 3 angles now, and the city will be encircled. However, there'll be one more thing that will happen here. That is going to change the war, and that is this island here. Now, this island was actually given to the Dark Red Union after World War II. It had formerly belonged to Germany, but the red team didn't really need it, so they decided that they would give it to the Dark Red Union as a military base. So you could say it looks like this, but doesn't really. And the Neo-Persians are going to make a big mistake of not really knowing about this fact, and they're going to blow the island up. The Dark Red Union will receive the files from this, they'll look at them, and they'll decide that enough is enough, and they will join in on the war against Neo-Persia. Now, they were already skeptical once Neo-Persia started doing all these bad things in the Iranian areas and in Caspia. Even more so when many other countries started joining in, just showing the absolute threat of Neo-Persia. The Dark Red Union already knew that they were a threat, which is actually the original reason they wanted to make nukes. Not because of Sweden, but yeah. The Dark Red Union now will start to move their navy around Africa. As you know, the Suez Canal is now blocked off by Egypt because they're a communist nation. But they will start to move their troops around Africa in their very advanced navy that can do very long distance operations, and they are very close to Neo-Persia. Anyway, now we have the Battle of Metopia finally commencing. This lasts 4 months, a little bit longer than the one of the Holy City. But once again, Neo-Persian victory. This just shows how cracked these guys are and how overpowered this country is. And that secret project that we were talking about earlier, it's complete. No one knows what it is yet, but it's complete. They'll then kind of sprout out in Mesopotamian areas, capturing a lot of these major cities around this and pushing up into even more. They'll also push along the Caspian coast of Caspia and getting very close to the capital city areas. And they'll send a spearhead out to try and get to the Red capital city. However, the Dark Red Union forces have now officially arrived, and Neo-Persia is going to be having a lot of a harder time, with the third and the first strongest country in the world finally having the battle or the war. Anyway, down in the Filipino front line, it's going the same for Burma as it originally was, as they are actually completely destroying this country, and the Philippines are not having a very good debut in the war scene. They never really had to prepare for war, and of course they were prepared for like Neo-Persia's possible invasion. They'd seen them formally invade Borneo, and they thought, well, we might be next. So they had built up their military a bit. However, at this point, they weren't ready for like this, which is a massive war with even Neo-Persian troops getting involved. And they'll eventually make a landing on the northernmost island and start rapidly pushing up. And yeah, they're cooked. However, we then see something extremely good happen for the anti-Neo-Persian side, as here what are the name? The Burmans, they get really ahead of themselves. It's kind of like how in World War II when Italy was like, oh, we can take over Greece, and they tried to invade Greece, but then it didn't work. See, a very similar thing happened here, as we have the Neo-Persians invading into China. They claim this area, and they'll quickly go around the areas they claimed. They'll occupy this whole region. And if we look at alliances, we can see that the CEU is an economical alliance. However, when they see Neo-Persia invading into China, it acts more like a defensive alliance. So honestly, let's just do something quickly. And just like that, the CEU would declare war on the Diamond Alliance. We can now say that the Caspians and the Red teams, the Red team are also on the Blue team, as well as the Dark Red Union over in Europe. Now we are going to have to change this a little bit, as not every country wants to join the war. A lot of them do, but these two don't see a point in joining the war. So they won't, as they don't even border the country, Neo-Persia or Burma, and they feel a lot safer. Same thing will be true with this country, is they don't really want to use any of their forces, and fair enough, so they won't be joining the war, but the rest of the CEU will be. So let's start the real fighting, as it's going to begin now. As the Neo-Persian offensive into Chinese-Vietnamese land will go horribly, and Neo-Persians are going to get utterly crushed on this front line. I'm just going to colour this in as like China's land now, because it basically is, so yeah. We have the Chinese finally starting an invasion into into Burma. I swear to God, I've definitely called them Neo-Burma once in this video, but they will catastrophically affect this war as they push down to where the old capital of Vietnam was. Then down in Sumatra, we have something different happening, or something happening as well. That's very similar to Bangladesh. The people here do not like the fascist government, so we have a rising up party, and they will rise up and take over basically the entirety of this country. And just like that, we have them switching now, and they are pretty they're pretty supported by the Dark Red Union, whose troops have arrived by this point, and we'll see the effect in a minute. But they are basically being helped by the Dark Red Union a lot to try and push back in this war, as they see the Burman front line as a good way to try and get up into Asia. So I'm going to colour this in dark red, because this is technically the Dark Red Union's troops doing this, but they will be able to make a landing down here, and push up, grabbing this major city, and take control of the Strait of Malacca, in which now a event will happen which will block any trade from the Red team or any fascist country from going through the Strait of Malacca, which is going to badly hurt the front line in the Philippines. And with also Dark Red Union troops arriving over here, they'll have a moment to breathe, and they'll finally push them back off the northern archipelago of islands of the country. However, the Neo-Persians front line in the Red team still isn't calming down, and they'll get very close to the capital. However, don't fear, the Dark Red Union troops are officially here, and they'll be pushing back in these kind of Saudi Arabian areas right here, and being detrimental to this war, as their army, even though it may be smaller than Neo-Persia's, it still is more advanced and they have better weaponry. They make an invasion down here, and we see Neo-Persia get pushed back, now completely taking this part of Oman, and at this point the Neo-Persians are thinking about doing what they invented. However, they won't quite do it yet, and we do see now one of the best chance for them to win this war, which will come in the battle of the Red Team's capital city. They will then have a very long battle. This will last 5 months. The last two have lasted shorter than this, but 5 months this battle will last. And in a different way than usual, the Red Team will be able to push Neo-Persia back, and it will officially stop here. The Neo-Persian offensive has gone on for far too long, and the Red Team now is officially pushing back, as invasions into the spearheads that they have made will be done by the Dark Red Union, and they will see very bad things. Now, it's not just the Dark Red Union doing this, obviously, it's also the Red Team and Caspian troops, although Caspian is definitely having a better time of pushing back now the Dark Red Union troops are here. But they find stuff in these cities and areas that is very disturbing to them. They see mass grave sites over here, and just awful horrible things, such as chemical radiation in these city areas, and basically concentration camps. This is worse than what we saw with the Triangle Alliance in World War II, and this is going to inspire a lot of countries to join a coalition against Neo-Persia. Seeing the horrors they've done, and even though it's not really international law at this point, it's still very frowned upon, and many countries will be joining the anti-Neo-Persian alliance. And these are all of the countries that are going to join the coalition. We have loads of countries in Asia. We have basically the Russian countries. Sweden and the Dark Red Union are on the same side. This is how bad this is. Like, even though they don't like each other, and these guys don't like democracy, they'd probably rather see democracy than fascism, because fascism is like a step too far. Even Florida joins in their dictatorship, and that just shows like how much these guys don't like it. Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, the Egypt country, yes. South Africa, this orange democratic one, and yeah, that just shows how much fast this war's going to go now. As the Filipino front line will speed up to the point where they're able to basically capture the entirety of the archipelago. This doesn't happen very quickly. This happens over many years. They're doing a lot of island, not many years, but probably about a year. They're doing lots of island hopping around this area, and after this year, they'll be able to push now into Neo-Persia, into Burma, and start their official invasion into this Borneo area. Wanting to free the old Borneo country, and also just to free any country here, they will push in. We even see the Sumatran country get involved and start their invasion back into their claimed lands in Borneo, which have they've been assimilated a lot, but not to the point where like they're still there. People that used to live there are still there. But Neo-Persia, Burma's claim on Borneo is gone. Then have the Dark Red Union's push being accelerated up as they push up this peninsula area, now into some of the more core lands of this country. We then see Vietnam rebel away, and they're going to take back some land. Vietnam is a very historic and ancient country. Burma was created after Vietnam, but they are very, habited around this area, and they want to officially come back to the world after being gone for a few episodes. But we have these guys getting crushed, and eventually the front lines over here will start to collapse as millions now of troops across the world, known as the anti-fascist forces, will start pushing in. And we see Qatar and all this area being liberated, and the Asian axis is officially dying. The red team will now start their own push inside of Neo-Persia, and the yellow team will also completely push these guys out of their country and retake their land. Then have another invasion being made, and up here, this country is going to not exist for much longer, as it's basically cut off from the rest of Neo-Persia. And yeah, what's been happening a lot of this war? So for some reason, countries like rebelling, and we have this country here rebelling away. They are a completely new country, and they come from the puppet state that Neo-Persia had, and they will now start their invasion, and they are pretty much free by Caspian, so they're going to actually give some land to them over in the peace tree, but we'll see that in a bit when it happens. And Neo-Persia is officially getting cooked, and this is this point where we have a moment being decided in the war that is kind of it's very important actually, and we'll see that in a minute. As first we have Bangladesh. They're going to come back, and they're going to basically take over their old land, even starting an invasion into the Bengali areas, capturing their homeland area like this. And yeah, this will show how weak Burma is at the minute, as in their final days they will get hunted down basically. We have the Dark Red Union coming up and officially capturing the capital of this country, ending the government once and for all, and eventually they will surrender. In fact, they surrender after this country starts invading, so yeah, very, very deadly. And this will be the division of Burma now, and this is also going to lead to the Bengalis invading into the Persian areas in India over here, and this blue Indian country will now actually join in on the war and start their own invasion into Neo-Persia. And why did they do that? Well, that's because one of the most important moments in this entire war will happen as the Dark Red Union will meet with many of the major powers inside of the Trapezoid Alliance, and then decide that there needs to be a proper landing inside of Neo-Persia. As we now officially see E-Day commence in this area of Pakistan, as the Dark Red Union will make a landing here, and they'll push up very quickly and grab the Twin Cities just like this. However, in between the Twin Cities they find something quite disturbing. They find evidence of nuclear bombs, and the Dark Red Union will go on and question the government of Neo-Persia, saying, what is this? However, a day later they'll find out that they were too late, as 3 nuclear bombs will hit across the Red Team's territory, wiping out a large number of the population and military. About 5% of the Red Team's population will actually die, which is quite a lot, and the radiation left here is quite bad. Now, why did Neo-Persia choose these spots to hit? This area was obviously because this is one of the most historic areas of the Red Team. This was the capital city, obviously, that's where the government is kind of located at this point. And down here, this is a very major port. Now, the Red Team cities are very good with infrastructure. They've been improved a lot in the last 10-20 years, considering the amount of oil the Red Team's been selling to the world. So this will destroy a portion of both of these cities. However, this one down here is quite hard to live in because of the radiation, and these two are also quite hard because of the radiation. So what the red team's going to do is kind of evacuate the population up north a bit until they can find, until all the radiation kind of goes away. But the powers of the world will decide that this cannot go unnoticed, and because of the atrocities that Neo-Persia has committed here, they will have to pay. As many of the countries in the coalition will decide to say yes, and a week later we have 5 nuclear bombs hitting inside of Neo-Persia in very detrimental locations, and 3 will hit in their capital. Just like the red team, this area was a port. This was their biggest military base over here, and obviously the capital city is dead. And the capital city isn't completely gone. They hit the very outskirts of it to kind of give them a warning, like, hey, do not do this again. But we are going to have to update the nuclear bomb numbers after this war, as Sweden used 1 of theirs and the Dark Red Union used 4. So they both actually have 3 nuclear bombs. Dark Red Union actually only has 2 in their territory at the minute, so that's quite scary. But the reason that they did this is, there's kind of like a nuclear wall outside this capital now, so the very interior areas are still, like, suffering a lot. But the government's still there. We do at this point see the Dark Red Union go all in and brutally start taking over Neo-Persia, committing very many war crimes in this region, and they'll go up the Indus. Kind of like how the Allies did it in World War II when they committed a bunch of war crimes, but it didn't even compare to what the Axis was doing over in Europe. It's similar over here. We actually have Blue Xinjiang invading out into the red country over here, in which they will basically just straight away decide to surrender over to Blue Xinjiang, and they will, Blue Xinjiang actually did something. They will carry on to, as they will also now start their own invasion into Neo-Persia, and Blue Xinjiang is really the MPV of this, or the most important, the MVP of this war. There we go. We then have all the Caspian troops and all the red team troops basically combine at this point to form one massive blob to try and take over as much Neo-Persian land as possible. The Dark Red Union will continue their offensive around the coast, now capturing the old capital of what is Old Persia. They'll also help the Indians kind of carve up this area, and we even see the Djibouti country capture Socotra, and the Dark Red Union is cooking in this war, just showing how strong they are. And the Bengalis will also push up north. Same thing with the Blue Xinjiangians. This green team didn't actually get anything. They're very lazy in this war. The Indians will continue pushing up north now, grabbing a lot more land. I know they're not going to next this thing, obviously. We even have Blue Xinjiang continuing their push, and eventually a lot of this land will be captured, and the red team will continue their push, obviously, like I said before. This is being helped out by the Dark Red Union and all the other powers in this war. But at this point, we have Neo-Persia being reduced down to this, and it's very clear they're going to lose. But however, there's one problem, and it's that they're not surrendering. Even after being nuked 5 times, the Neo-Persians aren't surrendering. So finally, the Dark Red Union will decide, without Swedish permission actually, so this is kind of like careful to them, they are going to nuke right in the centre of this capital city, where the government is located. And what this is going to do is completely wipe the Neo-Persian capital city off the map, and it's completely destroyed. It no longer exists, and it's not allowed to exist. And the remaining government, who is very weak, will just decide to surrender over to the Dark Red Union, and Neo-Persia has officially fallen. Now, I know I did make it seem like the Dark Red Union and Sweden relations have been repaired, and they were sort of for a little bit. However, until this happened, when the Dark Red Union just nuked Neo-Persia without permission, Sweden got really angry. Like, they didn't mind the fact that they nuked them, but not asking our permission when that's literally a mass weapon of destruction. And we signed many treaties that said that, MAD means mutually assured destruction, by the way. And Sweden is going to really pissed off by the Dark Red Union at the minute, and the hate will continue. But anyway, let's just take a look at a peace treaty, because I'm done with yapping. So I'm going to take this in a step-by-step process. So first of all, we have the Dark Red Union only having 2 nukes left, while Sweden has 3. And yeah, you can see that this is kind of affected the Cold War in a way that there's not as many nukes left, which is a good thing if you don't like nukes, but if you want action, then yeah, it's bad. So first off, we have the Sign country being completely integrated into Caspia. We then have Caspia taking away 1 province just from this gold country here. So over here we see Caspia get a lot of land from Neo-Persia. They get all of this, and yeah, it's a lot. These borders are atrocious, but you just have to live with them. It's my bad for actually adding provinces to the series. The red team isn't actually going to take that much land away from the Persian or the Neo-Persians. They're going to get this because they are more focused on throwing the people and adding more people to their country. And also they just got nuked, so they're decently unstable at the minute. I also forgot this city is completely erased as well. But anyway, let's now move on to Southeast Asia, because we're going to get to Neo-Persia later. Oh boy, we are. As Bangladesh will be returned to their former glory finally. And yeah, Prime Bangladesh, get back guys, let's go. That's actually so peak. They're going to be giving all of this land away from Burma. They'll also get a small amount of land in India as well. And finally now, for the first time, or not the first time in ages, but finally for the Bengalis, we have the capital being put back where it always used to be. Now, a bit of a kind of back look in the series. Bangladesh was originally meant to be the superpower, not as in like Neo-Persia level, but they were gonna be like, in fact, they kind of were gonna be. They would have been taking on the role of Neo-Persia. They would have been the fascist power. In fact, basically all of East Asia would have ended up becoming fascist, but I decided to change that in this timeline because I think it was quite unrealistic. Anyway, the base Chinese country is going to get all of this land, and these guys are going to gain all of this land. The Sumatran country gets like this entire tail of Southeast Asia. And something important to note is that the OG government actually still exists down here in these islands. The Sumatran will actually get this one, but no one knows this, and they believe this is part of the new government, which I'll reveal in a minute. So here we see the dividing of Burmese Borneo, which is a weird thing to say, but the old Borneo country comes back, and we have Sumatra getting their claims. So now we have Vietnam getting independence as well as a massively strong country, or massively strong region. So they get all of this, and this is a huge amount of land for them. They're now quite blobby, and they're not long enough. I think they should be longer. So down here we have a new country being born. I don't know. This is kind of like Laos. No, this is definitely like Thailand, or maybe this is more Myanmar. And we have a new government being put down here. And yeah, all the islands will stay under a fascist regime for now. Completely unknown to the world, and that's such a good backstory for this country. Well, I'm actually going to give a province to this country because I feel like I don't like the border, so they're just going to get one singular province right here. These guys do only have one capital or one city in the country, so they're going to put it right here. And this is the peace treaty over in Southeast Asia. Now let's move on to the main course. So first off, Socotra is going to go over to the Djiboutian country. So down here we have the Indians gaining all of this land, and this is, I mean, they occupied most of this country, so they're just going to gain this. So we see India get this land, and we have a new province created here. So this is what we end up seeing with this Indian country, and their capital is going to be right here. Now this is the same colour as an old country that did used to exist. They do inhabit a bit more areas of India, and yeah, they just look like this now, I guess. Now it's time for a few big ones, a boom. So these two countries will have the union broke up, and they'll also gain a bit of land. And we have this country being brought back. This is a country that I don't know if any people really remember, but it was like a lime country that's basically all in the Himalayas. We do actually see Blue Xinjiang getting a bit of land, surprisingly. That's going to be these two provinces from the yellow country here, and they will just gain that. And just like that, the Neo-Persians have nearly completely gone. Then I have the gold team getting all of this. They get quite a lot of land, and they do kind of mirror a country that did used to exist. However, they are quite far from and not even close to being the same as that country. I'm even going to change their colour a bit. And they do have this region of the old Caspian country, but at the same time, I mean, they do kind of claim to be the sort of successor of them, which I do believe they used to look something like this. In fact, I have an exact map here. This is what they used to look like, and this is them now, so yeah, cool. So we then see a new kind of Pakistan mint country being born. This is a very tiny country. I'm going to give them a little bit more, but hey, mint Pakistan is real, so cool. So this is what we end up seeing as the final thing in this peace treaty. So we have two countries being born. That is this purple one here, and the green team. As OG Persia is officially back, and New Persia, or even the New Persian, like the old blue country, yeah, it's completely banned from existing. If it comes back, there will be a coalition formed against it once again. In fact, maybe the blue one's not banned from existing, but any fascist version in Persia, yeah, that's definitely banned. And we then have this country having their capital right here. So this is the full peace treaty for the third War of Arabia. Personally, I really did like this war. I do think it kind of mirrors how World War II sort of was in our real timeline, where it was like fascism mostly versus sort of democracy or whatever. But it's a little bit later on, plus in the Cold War. Now I'm going to say that the treaty took place on January 1st, 1950. So we are now in the 1950s, and yeah, we are welcoming a new era. It's not really a new era, we're still in the Cold War era. But this is going to be a kind of rapid technology advancement era. In the next few episodes, even though it may not look like it, there's going to be a lot more nukes in the world. Oh, and I haven't talked about the radiation, which I'm actually going to do a map of. So this is the radiation map at the minute. As you can see, the most radiated area is this. This has caused millions of deaths. That's because these three bombs here, I mean not four, there's four of them, and that's going to cause a lot of damage. And it, like 4 nuclear bombs, it destroyed the whole city and radiated like hundreds of kilometers area, which is kind of huge. The rest are a lot smaller, and they are the red team ones at least are going to quickly actually disappear. That's because the Neo-Persian bombs were a lot weaker than the ones that the Dark Red Union and Sweden have. The Neo-Persians did kind of rush the production of their bombs so they could make 3 and nuke the Red Team, so they weren't as strong as they could have been if they just had a bit more time. So these cities aren't completely destroyed, and they were probably, these bombs that Neo-Persia made, they're probably weaker than the little boy bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. However, the ones that were dropped on Neo-Persia, they were probably a par, or maybe a little bit stronger as late 19th or the Soviet bombs that they first made when they were created. So that kind of shows the scale of stuff. But that's not actually going to fully do it for today's video, as we're going to have a few smaller events, such as first fixing the ideology layer. And I believe that the ideology layer has been completely fixed now. So as you can see, the old Neo-Persians and the Burmans have both been turned into very strong democracies. The elections are heavily monitored by the Dark Red Union to see if there's any very extreme parties, but you're not allowed to go into any extremism, so basically they just have to stay as a democracy. In the other countries, they're a little bit less monitored. Vietnam, no, they don't really care. Vietnam can do what they want. And all the other countries, they kind of wanted their independence anyway. A lot of these are very separatist areas that were inside of Neo-Persia but were oppressed, obviously. So yeah, let's move on. And the event we're moving on to is a absolute surge in the popularity of the CEU. I mean, they basically now have a lot of Asia under their influence, considering the fact that they helped them win the war. So we're going to get quite a lot of countries to join in on the economical alliance because of their efforts in the war. Vietnam will consider the offer, but they'll end up declining. The purple country will take it, considering they're a new country and they want to rebuild. The Burmans will, with the new government, take the offer. We actually have this Manchurian country-ish thing up here joining. There's no Japanese alliance anymore, which is kind of the main competitor with the CEU. But now there's none of that, they can just join the CEU. And at this point, this is not really the CEU anymore, this is more the AEU. So this is the Asian Economical Union. This is kind of like the EU really in this timeline. We also see this country, I mean there's not really much explanation here, they're in the middle of the Himalayas, they kind of need it. And we even have Sumatra deciding to join this alliance, considering the fact that they also want to rebuild. So the CEU is now very strong, and they are taking over a lot of Asia with the new with the economic alliance. Anyway, and there's we come down here, and there's a reason this country here didn't decide to join in the CEU, and that's because they're going to be unionizing with the Manchurian country. They're basically like a goner as a country. They are very weak after they got invaded by Korea, so they're just going to decide to join up with the Manchurians, and they'll probably have a better life in here. And in Japan, there's also a lot of instability, so we could see something in the next 2 episodes. Same thing is actually happening in Papua New Guinea for some reason. But that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. This is probably the biggest war since World War II. A lot of things happened one major event happened, but a lot of tiny other things happened as well. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye-bye. But anyway, yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.